The Blue Jays dropped the opener against the Dodgers last night, and honestly, it wasn't pretty. But here's the thing. That loss isn't just a bad night. It's a preview. It's a warning shot. Because the 2026 season isn't going to let Toronto ease into anything. The schedule is already throwing heavyweight matchups at them, and the names on the other side of the field are names that kept this team up at night in 2025. Think about where this club was less than a year ago. Inches away. Inches away from a World Series title. Game 7. The whole thing. And now it's a clean slate, a new season, and the mountain has been reset. That's the brutal reality of baseball. You don't get to carry last year's momentum into this one. You have to earn it all over again. So what does that actually mean for this team going forward? It means they can't walk into 2026 assuming they're going to end up back on that stage just because they were close. The margin for error is too thin for that kind of thinking. They need to be sharper. They need to be more prepared. And a big part of that preparation is knowing exactly who's coming for them, knowing which players on the other side of the field can derail an entire game plan if you're not ready. There are 3 guys in particular that the Blue Jays need to have a very specific answer for this season. 3 players who, if left unchecked, will make Toronto's life miserable in the regular season and potentially in October. Let's start with the most obvious one. Aaron Judge is not just another bat in a lineup. He is the lineup. And I know some people want to treat him like he's manageable, like he's just a guy the Blue Jays have figured out over the years. They have not. The numbers from 2025 tell that story very clearly. Judge slashed .325, .518, .600 against Blue Jays pitching last season. 13 hits, 3 home runs, 6 RBIs, 15 walks. And here's the part that should genuinely concern Toronto. He only struck out 11 times against them all year. 11. That's a hitter who is locked in. That's a hitter who understands the matchup and is making Blue Jays pitchers pay for every mistake. The intentional walk became Toronto's answer. They walked him 7 times on purpose last season. 7. And in a way, that tells you everything you need to know. The Blue Jays have not solved Aaron Judge. They've avoided him. There is a massive difference between those two things. Now take that regular season performance and carry it into October. In the postseason against Toronto, Judge totaled 9 hits, 14 total bases, 6 RBIs, and 4 walks, including 2 more intentional ones. Even in a series where the Yankees ultimately fell short, Judge was still a constant problem. He was still the guy you had to scheme around every single at-bat. The Blue Jays are going to see New York a lot this year. That's just the reality of being in the American League East. And in a division where head-to-head records can swing a wild card race or a division title, figuring out how to actually get Judge out, not walk him, not work around him, but get him out, has to be a priority. A pitch-by-pitch game plan. Sequence work, understanding what he's sitting on in different counts. This isn't optional anymore. It's a necessity. Moving on, Cal Raleigh is a problem. Full stop. 60 home runs in 2025. Let that number breathe for a second. 60. And the Blue Jays had to face this man in a Game 7 of the American League Championship Series. Think about the pressure of that situation. Think about what's at stake with a guy like Raleigh standing in the box when the season is on the line. Now, to be fair, Toronto managed him reasonably well in stretches. They held him to a .263 batting average in the regular season, which, given who he is not a disaster. But the ALCS showed what happens when Raleigh finds his moment. He hit 4 home runs in that series. 4. He drove in 4 runs. And while the Blue Jays ultimately advanced, the margin was slim, and Raleigh was part of the reason it came down to 7 games. Here's what makes him so dangerous. It's not just the raw power. It's the timing. Raleigh isn't necessarily going to beat you up all game, at-bat after at-bat, the way some hitters do. He picks his spots. He's the guy who's been quiet for 4 innings and then connects in the 6th with 2 runners on and flips the entire complexion of a game. That is the most unsettling kind of hitter to face. Blue Jays pitchers need to pitch to a plan against him, force weak contact, work the edges, understand what he's aggressive on early in counts, and most importantly, do not let him beat you in a moment where the game is hanging in the balance. Building familiarity with Raleigh in the regular season, developing a real book on him, pays dividends if these two teams cross paths again in October. And given how both clubs are built, that's not a far-fetched scenario. And then there's Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Blue Jays fans know this name. They felt this name. Game 2 of the 2025 World Series. Yamamoto was locked in, and Toronto's hitters were uncomfortable from the first pitch, and you could feel the anxiety building. This idea that if Yamamoto was going to show up like that every time, this World Series was going to be a battle. Then Game 6 comes and goes, Game 7 arrives, and the assumption was that maybe the Blue Jays had finally gotten past him, that the Dodgers would lean on their bullpen and Toronto could breathe. Dave Roberts had other ideas. Yamamoto came back, and he absolutely shut down the Blue Jays offense. 3 wins, 17 and 2/3 innings, 2 runs allowed, 10 hits, 2 walks, 15 strikeouts, against one of the best lineups in baseball that year. That is not a coincidence. That is not a pitcher having a hot stretch. That is command. That is craft. That is a pitcher who understands exactly how to exploit a lineup once he's seen it enough times. And here's the part that should genuinely concern Toronto heading into 2026. Yamamoto is not going to be worse. That repertoire isn't regressing. If anything, he's going to come into this season even more refined, even more confident, with the knowledge that he already beat this lineup on the biggest stage in the sport. He knows what worked. He knows the tendencies. He knows the weaknesses. The Blue Jays cannot afford to approach at-bats against Yamamoto passively. Sitting back, waiting for a perfect pitch to hit, working deep counts hoping to tire him out, that is not a strategy that will work against this pitcher. Yamamoto has shown over and over again that he can throw the same pitch 3 or 4 consecutive times in a single at-bat and still get the hitter out, because he understands sequencing at an elite level. He knows what you're looking for before you look for it. Toronto's hitters need to do their homework. They need to watch film on how he attacks different spots in the lineup, how he adjusts when a hitter shows they're sitting on a specific pitch, how his sequencing shifts with 2 strikes. They need to have a real approach walking up to the plate against him, not just a general plan of see the ball, hit the ball. Now, the Blue Jays may not see Yamamoto beyond April. Regular season matchups against the Dodgers are limited, and there's no guarantee both teams end up back in the World Series. But if they do, and this team is built to compete at that level, the preparation that happens now matters. The work you put in when the stakes feel lower is exactly what shows up when everything is on the line in October. The 2026 Blue Jays have the pieces to make another deep run. The roster is intact where it counts. The rotation has depth. The lineup, when healthy, is one of the most dangerous in baseball. But none of that matters if they walk into these matchups unprepared. Judge will exploit every hesitation. Raleigh will punish every mistake in a big moment. And Yamamoto will carve them up if they show up without an answer for what he's bringing. This team knows what it feels like to be one game away. They know what it costs. And now the question is whether they've learned enough from that experience to not just return to that moment, but to finish it. The 2026 season is already moving. The Dodgers series is here. The division race is brewing. The names are already showing up on the schedule. There's no easing in. It's time to get to work.